Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I seem to be up, at least I see green all around me. And yes, good. And also, let me check my sound before I start. This one is going to be blisteringly quick. My wife and I are heading out shortly, but this is in my head, and I thought about it. So I want to discuss it. This is my channel, and I am God of the space. First, guys, I want to thank all the people who donate Super Cash, all my patrons. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all the people who share and like my vids. Again, you guys are awesome. You make the content many degrees possible. I was thinking this morning, and I don't know how I got on this subject of thinking, or why I was thinking in this particular way. But I realized there's a certain problem in American politics, particularly when it comes down to the left. And we're talking about Democrats. Taking Republicans off the table for the moment, and you can't take them that far because they're part of the political scene. But the problem here is, to some degree, fear. Ultimately, the problem is fear. A certain degree of cowardice. Lefties, progressives, wayward socialists who are so terrified that they end up voting for the Democrats. The problem here is that Democratic Party doesn't fear its base. It's not afraid of you. Ultimately, it doesn't all that much care about you. It cares about your vote, but it doesn't necessarily care about you. It doesn't believe that you really have any options. Meaning, they understand that you are terrified of Republicans. And because you're so terrified of Republicans, that you're willing to vote for them. Meaning that they, the party apparatus itself, in no way fears you. It doesn't care. You have no alternative. There is nothing, nowhere else where you can go. So ultimately, they understand that if you're looking for some form of resistance, Democratic Party, come on in. Go on in. What do you want to hear? We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. Look, the problem with this is that lefties always get into this mindset that they're forced to vote for that guy. And they're put pressure on, just from the apparatus itself and just from how terrifying and gross Republicans are, to vote for that particular D, that milquetoasted D that he knows, that he doesn't like, that he gets at any gut level, though he's dissatisfied with, but he votes for him nonetheless. Now, you guys make the assumption that being burned by a particular flame means you're going to be consumed by that particular flame. The burn, in some cases, is an indication of disruption. And fact is, disruption is what's needed. Disruption is the thing that needs to be taking place. The public is thrashing back and forth, looking for some kind of option. And it gets dissatisfied with one, it goes to the other, in which case it gets dissatisfied again and moves back to the other. And the two-party system likes this because they feel that both of us will get a chance at the bat. Both parties are consumed by cash in the way that these things are run. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, the conversation is between two oligarchs, deciding on essentially how much they want to rape the public. Lefties are complicit in this. I mean, ultimately, you get terrified and you continuously vote for that particular guy. You continuously believe that being burned by something in the short term, meaning having a Republican win in the short term, means that you're going to somehow be the end of history. Not so much. Every group, every movement that has taken place gets burned. Doesn't matter what it is. If you're pushing up against and rubbing up against something that's unjust, that unjust thing is going to push back. There is nothing in the esoteric area of the world that means right is going to be, given this kind of good reward. You doing something right and you pushing for good things will get pushed back. It doesn't matter what it is. In South Africa, those people were killed, pushing against apartheid. In the civil rights movement, in Selma, fighting for civil rights, they were getting their heads bashed in. Freedom riders getting shot. There's always a penalty for pushback. It doesn't matter what it is, even if your pushback is the correct thing to do. It depends on the medium that you're interacting with. Meaning the burn in those cases were physical. The burn in those cases were beatings. The burn in the political sphere is losing. Now, from the lefty standpoint, the lefties are the goal of trying to get something accomplished has not been done by just continuously voting for the same thing that you've always gotten. The fear in this case prevents you from actually trying to get real substantive change. Going and putting your hat or throwing your thing in with the Democratic Party. I understand why this takes place. there are other elements of this that take place elsewhere also. So, thinking of the Republican Party as a radicalized group, you look for somebody else to stand up for your interests. So you may say in Middle East countries, Hamas is a group that stands up for Palestinian interests, so they're somewhat of a radicalized group based on the interests of the thing that's coming there, radicalizing them. You may have situations where in the Middle East, the United States' presence in that region of the world creates these radicalized groups, which people who may have been moderates under normal circumstances go to those particular groups to try to oppose the incoming force, meaning the United States. In this case, you have a radicalized group of the Republican Party, and you have another radicalized group, at least from the standpoint of the left, Democrats. And just like those groups in the Middle East, those groups are problematic, but it is perfectly understandable why the civilian population will run to those groups for assistance and for help. Lefties run to Democrats. You're looking at these guys as your organized army to rebuff what you consider to be a more hostile force, being the Republican Party. The problem with this is, just like the problem with Hamas, and just like the problem with these right-wing groups in the Middle East, is they are also problematic. It takes a two-party system to create the energy that's being taken place. And feeding that party system, one being radicalized, the other one also being batshit crazy. But you look at it as being normal just from the standpoint of how crazy that the other one is. Not necessarily getting the things that you want out of it, but voting for it purely as a way to rebuff an incoming force. That hasn't worked. And it hasn't worked for a particular reason. There's an understanding that you have nowhere else to go. They don't fear you. There is no consequence. If Bernie Sanders runs, right, I'll give you a perfect example. The losing of 1,100 seats, or all of those seats throughout the United States, to losing the House, the Senate, Supreme Court, and all of a sudden, hey, we have a unity commission. Why do you think there was a unity commission? That unity commission wasn't born because there was unity. It was born for the opposite reason. They were terrified that they were losing their party. They thought their party was going to go extinct and fall apart. And at the end of the day, what you had was a pressure that was being applied to the apparatus because so many people fled the party. The thing that was pushing on the party, the thing that was forcing that party to compel its hand to do something that it didn't necessarily want to do, was the fact that 15 million people had left. Your goal should not be unity. If you want something accomplished, being willing to leave is the issue. Being willing to leave is the point. Being willing to say, I'm done, I am walking, I can call this a day, I can say fuck all, I'm done. And allowing that thing to fail on its own right. Understanding that there is no capacity for you to do that means that party can do whatever it wants. When the polls started coming out saying Democrats may win the House and the Senate, Unity Commission, what? Unity, what? What? Unity, what? What's that? What's that? It goes away. What's the point in having a Unity Commission if these people are willing to vote for us again just because of who we're not? And it's very possible that that will take place. And that Unity Commission will be scuttled. What I want to get across here, though, is the pressure that you apply is the capacity to leave, the capacity to walk, the capacity to not be complicit and vote for each and every person that comes up. If that means that a Republican wins, then that means a Republican wins. And understand, in the short run, there is a burn to this. This is the medium to which we're burned. It's like leaving a dirty room unavailable for the past 20 years and then having to go back in and clean the room. This is the consequence for allowing the party to go in the way that the party has gone. Being willing to leave. You have an alcoholic patient. You have a drug addict. What do you do? Are you going to stay there while he, snorts coke and does all this stuff? Or are you going to fucking leave at a certain point? Your patient is ODing. And for the most part, you continuously enable it by giving it your vote, terrified that the other guy is going to be worse. And yeah, the other guy is going to be horrendous. But guess what? You never get anything that you want. And over the past 20, 30, 40 years, the conversation has shifted further to the right. The people who you've put in that office have been, for the most part, right-wing politicians, passing right-wing stuff that even Republicans couldn't get done. What am I missing? What am I missing? Over and over again, the argument of, hey, you got to vote for this horrible milquetoast Democrat because a Republican is so horrible. How often do you get that argument? And at which point do you say, you know what, I want a little bit more than this person just being a decent human being. I want a little bit more than that. I want somebody to actually represent my interests. I don't want the situation where I have to scream and moan and bitch and push just to get the person to do the right fucking thing and the thing that the person said when they were running for office. At which point do you realize that the way the two-party system has gamed itself is that it is not in your interests. It is a system purely for oligarchs. They run both of the parties. The things that they want are the things that both parties are espoused. There are only minor degrees difference between those two things. You believe that because the media gives you Pepsi and Coke, that there's a disparity between Pepsi and Coke. The disparity is minimal at best. Do you want someone to represent your interests? Yes or no? And do you believe that your interest is being represented in the things that these people espouse and the things that these people do? The things that these people actually do. Not the media hype, not the MSNBC. I'm talking about the wars, the killing, the locking people up, the spying. I'm talking about things that are actually affecting human beings. Not addressing poverty. Not addressing this thing of militarism and the thing of I would even say corporatism, or the way that the tax code is tilted in a particular direction, and the way that we give mounds of cash to all of these organizations and these massive tax cuts while the people at the bottom get the shaft. Trillions of dollars we're spending abroad, draining the resources from the country itself, from the people who actually need the resources of the country itself. All I'm saying is, if you want something to change, and if you want somebody to represent your interests, you're not going to get it in these two-party systems. And the Democratic Party, particularly, as long as they understand that there is no situation to which you would not give them your support because you're terrified of the other guy, then they have no impetus to change. They have no reason to change. I'm going to leave it at this, because my wife is probably ready. My mom, she, after the election, she says, well, Democrats have to change now. And I was like, why do you believe they have to change? She says, I mean, they can't keep going on like this. I mean, this party's horrible. And this is from somebody who's a Democrat for the past, for her entire life. I said, but why do you believe they need to change? Well, they're horrible. At this point, certainly they understand losing this much, that they've been rebuffed by the public, that the public doesn't want this, that as ghastly and as horrible as Republicans were, Republicans still won all throughout the United States, that this was more of an indication of their failure as opposed to this Republican success. Certainly, this is apparent. And I'm saying, but you voted for Hillary Clinton. Yeah. She didn't make the connection. You understood all of the elements that were associated with both of these candidacies, meaning she had an indoor seat in regards to the stuff that was being done in that party itself, the stuff that was being exposed in WikiLeaks. She understood it all. And still, at the end of the day, knuckled under and voted for Clinton because of how bad and how gross and how over the top Trump was. The point I made to her was, at the end of the day, when it all was said and done, you were terrified of one, so you voted for the other. Meaning the person who you were terrified of gives a free pass to the person you put in that office. Don't look at the failings of me. Pay attention to how bad that guy is. And that's the continuous way it's run. And that will be the way that it's run in 2018. Don't look at us. Yes, I know we lost 1,100 seats. I know we lost it all. I know we're horrible. But don't look at us. They're worse. If you reward that, meaning if you put them in office, you've essentially told them that, yes, it doesn't really matter what you do. The horribleness of the other party is sufficient enough for us to get back in office without an agenda, without a plan, to just be the opposition to whatever the other party is. At some point, you're going to want somebody to actually have a plan, to actually have something that they want to get accomplished, and to actually be in office with this idea of supporting the public itself and actually wanting to get shit done. No, that's not a one election cycle plan. That is something of saying you don't get support unless you're representing a particular interest. And that definitely is something of saying being perfectly willing, openly willing to let the person fail if they don't necessarily meet your bar. Otherwise, you're going to get the same milquetoast Democrat, these corporate-owned robots that you've gotten for the past 20, 30 years that in no way has your interests in heart. So, I'll leave it at that. This is Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, this is literally Stockholm Syndrome. You know, these guys are so terrified of the guy that's coming through the doors. It's like, yes, he beats me. Yes, he punches me in the eye. Oh, yeah, the black eye fell down the steps. I accidentally tripped off the porch. You're getting punched in the face over and over again. And you're pretending as if you're not being punched in the face. And that you're going to board the ship. And that you're going to change him. And that you're going to, you know, tie the addict down to the bed so he can't get to his donor. Yeah. I'm not seeing that right now. I'm seeing the people who are so fiery in the Unity Commission bitch and moan and complain that the things that they put through the Unity Commission are not being passed. That's what I saw. You have no leverage. Your leverage was their failure and their losses. If that failure and loss is resolved, meaning in 2018, you have no leverage. If you want to save the party, you need to be willing to leave it. That is the bare bones truth. There is nothing more true that has ever been said. So, the fact is, if you're getting slapped every day, then no, he's not going to respect you. If he can hit you in the eye and you will still be there in the morning, no, he's not going to respect you. If he can, you know, I'm not going to be vulgar. I'm just saying, if you're willing to accept all of the things, all of the negative consequences that are taking place without recourse, then you're not respected. You're just being used. Your vote is perfunctory. And yes, they're going to continue to be the way that they be because ultimately your vote doesn't matter. You give it to them regardless, meaning it's used for whatever ends. Cowardice is not a precondition to getting things done. In fact, cowardice cannot be a part of any process of getting things done. Good luck with your dim entering. Good luck. I mean, and I say that the dim enter thing is part of the problem. It's part of the problem. I'm sorry. If you've seen what these guys have done, if you've seen the interest that these guys are in, even people who are on board for loading themselves into the Democratic Party. There's an interview with Nomika Cant. She's talking to this woman who's a like some kind of journal writer. She's I can't think of her name. Is it Steiner? Gloria Stein? I can't think of the person's name. But they're having this conversation about Democrats. And mind you, Nomika is on the side of Democrats, like trying to invade the party. We're boarding the bus. We're doing something. Those guys. And they're having this conversation. It goes to money. And this awkward silence between the two people as they're talking about how bought the politicians are in the Democratic Party. It's this silence like, yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. They got to get money. They got to be corporate whores. They got to get money. So yeah. Just know your party is bought. And know they're not going to represent your interests. And know being conned into believing that voting for somebody and then having a hoot, holler, and bitch and moan to get them to even do the most incremental of things. You shouldn't put them in office in the first place if you have to do that. That's my point. And they shouldn't get your support if you have to do that. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. All right, I am going. I can't stay. Let's see. Yeah, I can't stay. I gotta go. So I'm going to end this now. J. Scott Jamal was part of the Koch brothers lefty outreach program. Not so much, but I am on. If the Koch brothers are giving me a check for a lefty outreach, oh man, I would take that check. If I can say the same things that I'm saying now, I would totally take that check. If it's, but I think I know why you're saying that. You're saying that because I'm making the point that if Democrats win, it's somewhat of a problem. I mean, come on, Jay. Be honest. Be very honest with me. Democrats in 2016 lose it all. Why do you think they lost it all? Like, do you believe that the people who voted them out of office all throughout the country, the 1,100 seats, the House, the Senate, Supreme Court, the woman losing to a ham sandwich, do you believe that they lost all that stuff out of luck? What do you believe that caused them to lose those things? It's a failure of them. It's them. It's the way they operate. These guys are corporate tools. This is the point I'm trying to tell you. This is the point I'm trying to get at. I have no expectation of Republicans at all. If you want to get anything done from the left, it has to be done if you're talking about a party system, either through the Democratic Party or through some other body or edifice that's going to take place and replace that party. That party, as it is failing miserably. And it's failing miserably because people understand that those people are bribed. They're bought. They say certain things and can no way fill out the things that they say because they're essentially robots of whoever's giving them money. Now, if you think I'm right, and all social change that takes place from the left. The only party that you have is the Democratic Party. That's the only edifice that you have, and that edifice is not a left-wing edifice. Meaning you're not going to get any of those things accomplished through that party and the way that party is currently organized and arranged. They failed miserably to such a degree in 2016, 2018, 2016. They've made no changes. The entirety of the party has turned around to talking about Donald Trump. They've made no changes. It's still the same party. And they've taken to gutting progressives who are trying to run in that party. Now you tell me, if nothing has changed, and yet they get reelected in 2018, what is the message that is given to them in this case? What do you think happens to the Unity Commission? Because keep in mind, they never gave a date when they were going to have that discussion of the Unity Commission thing. And my argument is, if they win in 2018, they're never going to have it. All of this stuff is contingent upon whether or not they can get reelected in the meantime. Meaning, is Donald Trump enough of a reason to get us back in that office? And if Donald Trump is enough of a reason to get us back in that office, fuck all to everything else. We don't need the public's opinion. The public is stupid enough to come running back to us, even though we haven't changed anything. The issue is cowardice. The issue is short-sightedness. Like this inability to look beyond one political cycle. Yes, you may lose, but this idea of accountability is making them fail. That's what accountability is. If you don't have any level of accountability in the politicians that you're interacting with, then what's the fucking point? Your vote is automatic. Vote is total automatic. Yeah. All right, so I am... Yeah, so I am heading out. I see a Domina. Oh, wow. Domina Dracon. All right, so if your principles stop at party lines, you're part of the problem. Domina Dracon, yes. Yes. Agreed. Agreed. All right. Jay Scott, if Democrats win a majority in 2018, the government comes to a shutdown, I am perfectly fine with that. All right, so Jay Scott, I have to leave. This is a larger conversation. We can have this conversation again. You and I have had this convo before. So I'm going to head out. When I get the chance again, hopefully you and I can have a longer conversation on it. Also, for my patrons, I'm going to start to have a call-in. I'm going to bring my cell phone out and use a call-in number for the patrons themselves. So it make it a little bit easier to have conversations. Jay Scott, yes and no. If Democrats win in 2018 and Bernie wins in 2020, then yes, you have something substantial. If Democrats win in 2018 and Kamala Harris wins in 2020, you have Obama 2.0. So, a little bit triggered, yes. A little bit triggered. All right, so I'm going to head out. You guys have a good one. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.